You're listening to The Authenticity Show, where you get to eavesdrop on great conversations about health, creativity, and the quest for excellence. Your hosts are Carlos Casados and Satch Purcell. Our guests today are Vlado Ilic and Ivan Polic. Vlado and Ivan practice and teach a form of group therapy called Family Constellations Workshop, which was developed by a man named Bert Heilinger, who unfortunately died one day after we recorded this interview, just shy of his 94th birthday. It was a real pleasure for me to meet Vlado and Ivan. These guys are so full of love. Just wonderful. As Satch says in this interview, as soon as they walked into my house, we all started hugging. Big, long, wonderful hugs. And I felt like an immediate connection. I had also experienced one of Vlado's guided meditations, which was really deep and powerful. So yeah, these guys are really special guys, and we were honored to have them here on the show. And one more thing, for a lot of this interview, Vlado was speaking in Serbian, and Ivan is translating for him.
Welcome Ivan Polic, and welcome Vlado Ilić. Am I pronouncing your names close to your...
Yes, very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have both of you here. Satch?
Yes.
It's always good to see you, my friend.
Again, here we go again, my friend. Yeah. And Carlos, you've done it again. You've brought some very interesting, wonderful people. As soon as they walked in the door, we all hugged.
Yeah.
That's a great start to a wonderful show.
Real hugs.
Yeah. Authentic hugs.
Authentic hugs.
Yeah.
Ivan, I met you a few months ago because I was invited to experience a bit of what you do. It was this Constellations workshop that you did over the weekend, and frankly, I was blown away. I'm really looking forward to talking about that experience and about where all of this comes from and what it means for you and how you got into it. And so this is going to be an interesting trip here that we're taking.
Mm-hmm.
So Ivan, I was wondering if you could speak a bit about what constellations are from the perspective of knowing nothing about constellations.
It's a very unique, what would I call it, a method, but more than a method, it's a way of life. And it's a unique modality because you get a chance to see your inner world. Most of the time, we are in our inner world, and we're looking out from it. But this is a way to, in a way, place your inner world in front of you in 3 dimensions and be able to see what is happening inside you in a very live and dynamic way. And with observing those movements that are happening in front of you, you get to learn things that you otherwise would never know. And that's the best way I can put it in simplest terms. And so how do you get to see that in front of you? People from the group, it's a group modality, and people from the group get to stand in for the inner parts of you. And they get to tune into them, and then they get to share what is happening in those parts inside of you by their movement, by their words, by their emotion, by the interaction of the different parts of you. And as you said, there is no substitute for experience, and we can do our best to share a little bit of the energy of it.
I'm kind of interested to know about what brought both of you to Constellations in the first place.
Bila prvi put na jednom seminaru konstelacije.
A friend of mine experienced the Constellation workshop for the first time.
I sva oduševljena me je zvala posle toga, pošto smo uvek razmenjivali tako naše iskustva.
And she was very excited. She called me right away, and because we always shared experiences.
I rekla je, Vlado, wow.
She said,
We got that.
I tako sam došao na prvi seminar.
and that's how I landed in the first event.
I tamo doživeo što nikad do tada nisam.
And I experienced something that I've never experienced up until then.
Bilo je zaista neverovatno, fantastično.
It was unbelievable and fantastic.
I na kraju seminara sam pitao voditelja
And at the end of the seminar, I asked the facilitator,
gde se ovo uči.
where can we learn this thing?
Hteo sam odmah da znam više.
I wanted to know more immediately.
I on je rekao, evo, baš sam krenuo sa novom edukativnom grupom.
And he said, I just started, I launched a new group of students.
Dobrodošao.
Welcome.
I tako sam se odmah priključio na edukaciju.
And then I immediately joined the education group.
I od tada do danas, već 30 godina,
And since then till now almost 30 years,
malo manje, 25. Tako, ne znam
25
tako.
plus, roughly.
Sam svaki put sa istim oduševljenjem, čini mi se.
Every time that I am in a workshop, I am blown away again and again.
Iako sam toliko puta slično doživeo,
And even though that I am so many times I had similar experiences,
svaki put me nanovo i iznova, čini mi se, još više oduševljava preciznost s kojom velika duša iznosi sve na videlo.
even though I've had experiences like it over and over, I am every time astounded anew of how precise the great soul presents information for us.
Bez jedne kognitivne informacije
Even without any cognitive information in the room,
izlaze informacije na svetlost dana koje niko do tada nije ni pomenuo niti znao.
incredible information surfaces in the room, even though none of the participants would ever know anything about those experiences, those things from the people's inner worlds.
I uz pomoć nepoznatih ljudi koji predstavljaju određene delove, određene osobe, klijenta koji radi na svojoj temi,
And with the help of the representatives of the people from the group that are supporting the process of each client as they go through it,
počinju da se odmotavaju blokade koje su decenijama, vekovima bile utisnute u genetsku strukturu klijenta i koji su ga u mnogome sputavale ili sprečavale da živi svoj život na najbolji način.
and with the help of those representatives, incredibly tight knots and entanglements get to untangle themselves and create new, release new energy, free more energy that is stuck in the system of the client. And it's every time incredible to witness.
U polju se iznese naš unutrašnji svet.
In the field of the group, in the field inside of the room, the inner world of the client gets revealed.
Sve ono što je u nama, čega često nismo ni svesni.
All the things that are inside of us that are most of the time we are unconscious about.
Odjednom postane živo ispred nas.
It's in an instant becomes all alive and ever present in front of us.
I vidi se da kada nešto fali, dolazi do zastoja u sistemu.
And we can see that sometimes things are missing and that there are blockages of flow of energy in the system.
Na primer,
For example,
kada je možda čukumbaba umrla na porođaju,
when a great grandmother died while giving birth,
ostavila je dete, svojim životom je platila život svoga deteta.
she paid for the life of her child with her own life.
To ostavlja veliku traumu u sistemu.
That kind of experience leaves a deep trauma in the system.
To dete ima veliki nedostatak, fali mu majka celog života.
And that child has a big void inside of their life. The mother is missing their entire life.
Istovremeno ima grižu savesti jer se osjeća da je ubilo svoju majku.
And at the same time, unconsciously, it has a sense of guilt because it feels like it killed its mother.
I taj nedostatak, taj osjećaj, taj trauma se prenosi s generacije na generaciju.
And that sense of trauma and pain gets passed on to the following generation and following generation.
I nekoliko generacija kasnije čukun unuka ne sme da se prepusti i da uživa u ljubavi.
And the great granddaughter may develop symptoms of fear to follow her impulses into love, into intimacy, into relationship.
Zašto?
Why might that happen?
Ljubav, duboka ljubav za posljedicu vrlo često ima začeće i trudnoću iz koje sledi porađanje.
And why might there be fear? Because love and intimacy might lead to conception and deeper relationship and birth, which might cause death.
Iako nikad nije doživjela ništa traumatično vezano ni za ljubav, a kamoli za porađanje, postoji veliki strah od toga.
And even though consciously and nothing in her experience, she hasn't even seen such a trauma ever, inside of her body, inside of her DNA, is deeply embedded, deeply stamped that trauma from several generations ago.
U genetskoj strukturi je utisnuto ljubav je opasna po život.
And the message inside of the genetic structure is that love is dangerous, it's threatening to, it may cause death.
I to je sprečava da se prepusti ljubavi, da se prepusti ljubavnim odnosima, jako bi to želela.
And that message, the love may cause death, is triggering fear, unconscious fear in the great granddaughter.
I kada se u polju vidi šta je uzrok, dakle mi ne polazimo od te čukun babe, o tome se još uvijek ništa ne zna.
And so when it reveals itself in the room, even though that's not our starting point. Our great-grandmother's never our starting point. We don't start with that.
Mi polazimo od njene teme, njena je tema ne može da se ostvari u partnerstvu.
We start with the client's issue, and if that was the case of that particular client, the great-granddaughter may present an issue of I cannot be fulfilled in relationship. That may be the starting off point.
Ali nas upravo taj početak dovede na uzrok i vidimo uzrok, posljedice nemogućnosti vezivanja.
And that would be our starting point, but when we present that into the room and into the field, it takes us back to the cause that has as its consequence the fear of relationship.
I onda se pojavi ta čukumbaba.
And then the great-grandmother appears in the field.
pojavi se njena ćerka
and her daughter appears in the field.
i prvi put zagrli dete svoju majku i prvi put majka zagrli svoje dete.
And it presents a first opportunity where that mother can hug her child for the first time.
I dete zagrli svoju majku.
And the child can hug back the mother for the first time.
I vidimo kako se trauma potpuno, kako taj led koji je nastao počne da se topi.
And we can literally see the ice of that particular trauma melt in front of our eyes.
I ljubav ponovo poteče.
And the love can flow again where it was frozen.
Od čukun babe ka prababi, od prababe pa babi, od babe ka majci, od majke ka ćerci.
And it can flow from the great grandmother to the grandmother to the mother to the daughter.
I kao posljedica toga, ćerka posle mjesec dana se prvi put zaljubi.
And as a consequence of that movement, granddaughter falls in love in a month.
Ali vidimo u trenucima kad se to dešava, iako ta ćerka, ta klijentkinja, čukun unoka, ne mora ništa da zna o tome i najčešće i ne zna ništa o tome. Kada se to dešava pred njom, iako nema informaciju šta se dešava, ona je duboko dirnuta, suze joj teku i lice joj se potpuno transformiše.
And as the client observed this process, the client may or may not know the story from their ancestry. What were the events, but as the energy reconnects and as the movement happens in the room, you can see energetically on the body of the client, the transformation in the face, in the body, in the tone, in the how much energy is flowing through a client. All that happens immediately.
Ti trenuci ne mogu ničim da se plate.
Those moments cannot be bought by anything.
To je čarobno.
It's magical.
Wow. To je način kako da u ovaj svet unesemo više ljubavi.
And it's one way on how we can reintroduce more love into our world.
Možda sam malo preterao sa uvodom.
Maybe my intro was quite extensive.
Well, it sounds like this work facilitates something that might otherwise be impossible, a resolution or closure or a completion that would not necessarily be possible otherwise.
I'm not aware of any other way to get to these transgenerational dynamics, and there are quite a few shamanic influences inside of this work, and old ancient wisdom that is contained within it, and going back all the way to the beginnings of Esculap is an ancient healer. I'm not sure how to translate his name into English.
Esculapius.
Asclepius.
Asclepius.
Oh, he's Greek.
He's Greek.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that kind of energy is embedded in the work.
Zato sam i spomenuo Esculapiusa, zato što mi se čini da ovdje dolazimo u dodir s nečim vrlo starim i velikim.
And I wanted to mention his name because in this work we come in contact with something very old and something very, very wise.
Kao da su sve metode isceljenja od Esculapa do danas sakupljene u jednu.
And it feels like all of the healing methods and ways of coming back to wholeness are contained within this one. from all the way from Esculapius to now.
Istovremeno sva znanja koja su u nama,
And at the same time, all of the wisdom that we have inside of us through the ages,
i sva znanja koje smo tokom života naučili,
along with all the experiences and learnings that we've accumulated through our lifetime,
se u tim trenucima nekako sinergišu
and in those moments, all of those things synergize together.
i kroz tu sinergiju dozvoljavaju da klijentu pomognemo da probudi svog unutarnjeg iscelitelja.
And through those experiences, it gives the opportunity for the client to wake up their own inner healer.
I kad probudi svog unutarnjeg iscelitelja, onda je na pravom putu isceljenja, ne ozdravljenja, već isceljenja.
And that is, once the inner healer is awakened inside of the client, that's the great path for the client to come back to wholeness, not just health, but wholeness. And I'm not aware of any other possibility to get this deep for the client and to reach the level of depth, the maximal level of depth that the client can take at the moment.
Kada kažem početak, mislim na uzrok.
And when I say deep, I'm talking about at the level of the cause of whatever might be causing the discomfort for the client.
You described this as a group modality, and you spoke about a field. Could you describe some of the mechanics of this process? Like, what does it look like? How many people are involved? Is the client sitting and watching this happen? Kind of paint a picture.
Vrlo često kad govorimo o grupama, imamo verovatno pred očima grupu ljudi koje sedi u krugu i priča o svojim problemima.
And many times when we imagine a group of people working on something, we think of people sitting in circle and then discussing various issues and problems they may be having in life.
Group therapy.
Kao grupnu terapiju.
Yeah.
Yes, as a group therapy.
Circle talk.
Da,
Yes.
svima nam je to poznato.
We're all familiar with that.
U smislu, ja sam 10 godina alkoholičar i tako.
As I'm an alcoholic and I've been drinking for 10 years.
Ali ovdje imamo nešto sasvim drugačije.
But this is something completely different.
Ovdje moram da napomenem da volim da radim u velikim grupama.
And I must say here that I really enjoy working in very large groups.
Što je grupa veća, to je energija jača.
The bigger the group is, the more energy present.
Jer svi istovremeno učestvujemo u radu klijenta.
Because everyone present is participating in the client's work.
Svejedno, da li zaista učestvujemo kao predstavnici,
Regardless if we are inside of the field and representing in that moment or we are just observing
ili sedimo na stolici.
from the chair.
Kako to izgleda? Grupa isto tako sedi u krugu.
How does that look? This is similar to the group therapy. It's we sit in a circle.
Ali niko ništa ne govori o svojoj temi drugima.
But no one is discussing their issues. No one is telling anyone anything.
Pored mene, sa moje desne strane, takozvana vruća stolica.
Next to me on my right side is the so-called hot seat.
Kada klijent dođe
When the client arrives
i sedne na vruću stolicu,
and sits in the hot seat,
daje mi autorizaciju da smijem da radim s njima.
And by sitting in the hot seat, the client gives me the authorization to work with him.
Ta autorizacija postoji već od trenutka kad se klijent prijavio za seminar.
And that authorization is already there implied when they sign up to join the seminar.
I najčešće, gotovo uvek, procesi počinju u klijentu da se bude u trenutku kada se prijavio za seminar.
And very often, most often, the processes inside of clients start to get initiated the moment that they made the decision to join the seminar.
Ali već pri dolasku na seminar ti procesi se ubrzavaju.
But as the time is approaching, those processes and movements gain in momentum.
Sazrevaju.
And they mature.
I u trenutku kada sedne na vruću stolicu, klijent je vrlo uzbuđen.
And in the moment of sitting in the hot seat, the client usually is very, very excited.
I ima veliku želju da mi sve ispriča šta mu se desilo u životu.
And he usually has a large desire to tell me the whole story.
I ponekad je klijent razočaran jer ja ne želim da čujem njegovu priču.
Sometimes the client is disappointed as I don't really want a story.
Pogotovo ne želim da bilo ko drugi čuje njegovu priču.
And especially I don't want the group to hear the story.
Dakle, to možemo nekad uz kafu.
We can do the storytelling when we have a coffee and we go out and sit in a cafe.
Ali na seminaru postavljamo jedno bitno pitanje.
In the seminar we are making one important question.
Kako se zoveš?
What is your name?
I to nam deluje možda čudno, kako se zoveš, svako zna kako se zove.
And that may look a little strange. Why would we ask someone what their name is? Because most of us know our name very well.
Ali, verovatno vam je poznato da u životu nekad činimo stvari za koje se vrlo brzo kajemo i nije nam jasno šta nam bi da to uradimo.
But in our lives, many times we take actions that almost immediately as we've taken them, we regret taking them. And we don't know where they came from and why they happened.
Bilo da se to dešava na poslu ili u privatnom životu.
Whether it's at work or in private life, we have those moments.
Kao da je neko drugi to uradio, a ne mi.
It appears so strange to us, like as if someone else took the action, and it wasn't us.
Ko zapravo to radi?
Who is that other that might have taken an action for us?
Ja tu u šali govorim, to su naši podstanari.
And as a joke, I call them our tenants.
Znači, u nama žive neki drugi ljudi.
Inside of us live some other people.
The devil made me do it.
U nekim religioznim strukturama se priča o đavolima ili
some religious backgrounds definitely call them the devils.
Ja ne idem tako dalje.
I don't go that far.
I ne vrednujem to.
And I don't, that's an interesting word to translate. I don't judge it. I don't put a value on it.
Da li je to dobro ili zlo?
I don't call it good or bad. I don't call it anything. I don't give it a value. I don't give it any judgment.
Ali definitivno, ako ja nešto uradim i već u sljedećem trenutku se kajem da sam to uradio, nije moguće da sam ja to uradio svesno.
I feel like if I take an action and immediately I'm regretting it, it cannot be, it's not a conscious action.
Ili ako radim nešto i u tom trenutku sam svestan da je to pogrešno.
Or if I'm doing something, then I know that while I'm doing it, this is the wrong thing to do.
Znači, to ne radim ja.
That means that it's not really me that is acting.
Neka sila u meni me navodi da to radim.
Some kind of force inside of me is making me take these actions.
I to je taj podstanar.
And that's the tenant that I'm talking about.
Taj podstanar mi čak ni kiriju ne plaća.
And that tenant doesn't even pay any rent.
Znači, ko je to?
Who is that?
To može biti neki moj predak.
It could be an ancestor
koji je nepravedno izopšten iz sistema.
That might have been unjustly excluded
Jer se nije ponašao tako kako familija od njega očekuje.
because he might have not behaved according to the expectations of the family,
Ili je možda ubijen,
or he might have been murdered,
ili je možda on nekoga ubio,
or he might have murdered somebody,
ili je možda neki moj abortirani brat ili sestra.
or he could be an aborted sibling.
Dakle, sve su to energije života.
All of those are energies of life,
I kasnije mogu nešto više reći o tome ako me
and
zanima.
I can share more about that a little bit later.
Dakle, te energije života su deo mog unutarnjeg sveta, mog života, mog sistema, mog porodičnog sistema.
And all of those energies may be present inside of my world, inside of my inner world, inside of my energy, inside of my system.
One su stalno tu,
They are present at all times.
ali ponekad se malo uspavaju, povuku, a ponekad kao da upotrebe naše telo da bi još jednom iskusili nešto u životu.
Sometimes those energies are dormant, and sometimes they're very active, and sometimes they want to use our bodies to experience something once again.
I u tim trenucima kao da oni žive deo našeg života umjesto nas.
And in those moments, they take over our lives instead of us.
I zato je pitanje klijentu kako se zoveš.
And that is why we start with the question, what is your name?
Da budemo svesni svoga imena i ovog trenutka.
So we can presence our own self and our own name and this moment now.
I nakon toga ga pitam šta je tvoja tema.
And then my next question is, what is your issue?
To je najčešće početak postupka.
And that's usually the way we start.
Ponekad klijent ne može da formuliše svoju temu.
Sometimes the client cannot verbalize their issue.
Ponekad želi da mi puno toga ispriča o svojoj temi.
Sometimes the client wants to verbalize too much.
Ja mu onda na takav način pomognem što mu kažem to što je razlog zašto si došao ovde.
And for such a client, I may help him with, what is the reason you came here?
Nemoj da mi kažeš, već izaberi predstavnika za taj razlog zašto si ovde došao.
And for a client that cannot verbalize it, cannot name the issue, I tell them, take a representative from the group that can represent the reason why you are here.
I izaberi jednog predstavnika koji će da predstavlja tebe.
And pick a representative for the group that can represent you.
Možda je jednostavnije kada klijent dođe i kaže nemam dobar odnos sa majkom.
A very common issue that people present is I cannot get along with my mom.
Ili nemam dobar odnos s novcem.
Or I cannot get along with money. Money just eludes me. I struggle.
Ili stalno sam u dugovima.
Or I'm constantly in debt. I cannot get out of debt. I owe so many things and so much money.
To je dakle njegova tema, to je ta tema.
And those are some of the examples of the issues that are very common.
I onda mu, na primjer, ako je novac u pitanju, kažem, izaberi jednu osobu koja će da predstavlja tebe, jednu osobu koja će da predstavlja tvoj novac, jednu osobu za mamu, jednu za tatu.
And in case of the money issue, I usually have the client pick a representative for money, a representative for themselves, and a representative for their mother and father.
I nemoj nikome reći šta predstavlja. Bitno je da ti znaš, ali nemoj nikome reći šta predstavlja.
And when you pick them, don't tell the representatives what they're representing. Intend for them to represent these things, but don't tell them what they're representing.
So you're not telling it them overtly, but intentionally.
Yes, intentionally with your energy, with your touch, but not verbally, not cognitively.
Na početku sam radio tako kao što sam i naučio na početku.
In the beginning, I worked as I learned in the beginning.
Da se verbalizuje.
And we used to name the representatives. We would tell them what they represent.
Ni da se kaže, ti si moj tata, ti si moja mama, ti predstavljaš mene, ti predstavljaš moj novac, na primjer.
You represent me, you represent my father, you represent money, and then we would start.
I vremenom sam primetio da je nekad u određenim situacijama predstavnicima nezgodno da predstavljaju, na primjer, ubicu.
And over time I noticed that some representatives have difficulty representing certain things. For example, a murderer.
I to i jeste nezgodno.
And it's quite a uncomfortable spot.
Zamislite da nekome kažete ti si ubica i ti sad predstavljaš ubicu.
Imagine giving that role to somebody.
I vremenom sam počeo da radim sa sve manje informacija, znači sa minimumom informacija.
And over time I learned how to work with minimum of information.
I to se pokazalo mnogo efikasnije, mnogo brže, mnogo delotvornije.
And that way of working without any cognitive information on the part of the representatives showed itself as much more effective and quicker and deeper.
Jer osoba koja ne zna šta predstavlja,
the person that doesn't know what they represent
može potpuno da se prepusti polju.
can completely surrender to the field.
To informativno polje zna sve.
And that universal field, all-knowing universal field knows everything.
I vrlo nas precizno upućuje na pravu poziciju u polju koje se stvorilo.
And very accurately guides us to the exact location we should be inside of the room.
Osobe koje biramo u određenu ulogu.
People that we pick for certain representations.
U svojoj unutarnjoj strukturi imaju sličnost za koju i ne znaju da je imaju.
In their internal structure, in their energy, in their systems, they have a core similarity with what they were picked to represent.
I dok rade kao predstavnici za drugog,
And while they're in service of the client and representing for the client,
istovremeno rade na toj svojoj dubokoj temi koja im možda nije ni poznata.
they are simultaneously working on their own internal structure that they may not even be conscious of.
Tako da ta razmena energije nikad nije jednosmerna.
And the energy exchange that happens between the client and the representatives is never one-sided.
uvek ide u dva smera.
It's always an exchange of energy.
I tu vidimo kako se u polju razvijaju se koalicije, protiv koalicije, kao u pravom životu.
And that exchange of energy happens both ways, and we can see in the room the coalitions, the alliances, the counter alliances, are presented, and they're just happening in front of us, just like in real life.
Are you saying that the people who are interacting as a representation for the person who's in the hot seat are also getting their own benefit working at a deeper level that has nothing to do specifically with the problem they're facilitating the healing for?
Da, to je posebna blagodet ovog rada.
That's the special blessing of this work.
Jer dok smo u ulozi za nekog,
While we are representing for somebody in service of the client,
istovremeno radimo na sebi.
at the same time we work on ourselves.
I vrlo često mnogo dublje radimo na sebi nego kad smo kao klijent na vrućoj stolici i postavljamo svoju temu.
And very often we work on ourselves deeper than when we're in the hot seat.
Kao klijent imamo nameru.
As a client, we have an intention, we have an agenda, if you would,
I ta namera nas vrlo često sužava.
and that agenda usually narrows us.
Kao predstavnik nemamo nameru.
As a representative, we don't have an intention, we don't have an agenda.
Izabrani smo u ulogu i tu smo u ulozi.
We are picked to represent, and we give ourselves over to the service of the moment.
I energija polja ide duboko u nas,
And the energy of the field goes deeply inside of us
radeći za klijenta,
to support the client,
ali istovremeno radi za nas.
but simultaneously works for us too.
I istovremeno za sve one koji su prisutni tu.
And simultaneously for everyone present in the room.
Vidimo vrlo često ljude koji sede na svojoj stolici, gledaju šta se dešava, nemaju nikakvu kognitivnu informaciju o tome šta se dešava i plaču.
Very often we see people crying in the circle without any cognitive information of what is the case, what is the client working on, what is happening, but spontaneous tears are flowing.
Potpuno su obuhvaćeni energijom polja.
The energy of the field is moving inside of them.
I to dovodi do katarzičnog stanja kod njih.
And it brings them to a cathartic state.
Iako još uvijek nisu ni seli na vruću stolicu.
Even though they're not even yet in the hot seat.
I to je vrlo teško objasniti rečima.
And that is very, very hard to explain with words.
If I may, I remember in your workshop in Circle being drawn into an experience and feeling, although I was representing something, I had no idea what I was representing or who I was representing. I remember that my internal experience was one of being kind of drawn into a story that was revealing itself, and I was participating in, call it imagination or just this experience of a story. And I felt what you're talking about. I felt huge waves of emotion hitting me, everything from annoyance to sadness to longing to, these various strong feelings. And it was very evocative because I felt like I didn't know what I was supposed to do, but because of the trust barrier or veil that I had to get through in order to participate actively, my emotions were triggered through that experience in a very uncontrived way.
Thank you, yes. To je upravo to. I
That's exactly it.
koliko god pričali o tome,
As much as we could talk about it,
nije jednostavno razumeti to
it's not very simple to understand
dok se ne oseti.
until it's experienced.
Zamislite da držite tajlandski krompir u ruci.
Imagine that you're holding a potato from Thailand,
Ne sa Tajlanda, nego tajlandski krompir. Dakle,
a Thailand potato
može
is a
može
type
turski.
of potato.
Tako je.
So Thailand potato. Imagine you holding a Thailand potato. It's a type of potato.
Verovatno da ne možete da zamislite,
You can't. Probably you couldn't imagine that
jer tako nešto i ne postoji.
because such a thing doesn't exist.
I was gonna say they come from South America, so
Možemo da kažemo američki krompir ili bilo koji, znači to ne postoji. Krompir ne postoji, takva vrsta krompira.
Yeah, we can just imagine a thing and but it's doesn't exist.
Ali postoji nešto drugo, postoji na primjer jabuka.
But something else does exist, and like an apple.
Svi znamo.
We all know an apple.
I pošto smo ovdje u Kaliforniji,
And because we're here in California,
najlakše je da zamislimo sočnu kalifornijsku jabuku.
it's easy to imagine a very juicy California apple.
Ali zamislite da nikad niste probali kalifornijsku jabuku.
But imagine you never took a bite, ever. You never had a bite of an apple.
Ali imate izuzetnu dobru sposobnost da opišete šta se dešava u vašim ustima kad zagrizete u kalifornijsku jabuku.
So you've never had a bite, but you're really talented at describing a bite.
Koji enzimi počinju da se luče, koji sokovi počinju da se luče u vašim ustima.
Very scientifically well versed in the enzyme production that happens in a mouth at the moment of the bite of the California apple.
Nikad nećete znati kako zaista, kog je zaista ukusa kalifornijska jabuka dok je ne zagrizete.
That depth of background and education and skill and talent of describing a bite will never come remotely close to the actual bite.
I zbog toga puno hvala na mogućnosti da se ovo ispriča.
And I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to share some of these words
Jer
with you.
neophodno je da što više ljudi ovo sazna.
Because it's necessary for as many people as possible to hear about this.
I puno hvala na ovoj mogućnosti vama, na spremnosti da čujete, da podelite drugim ljudima.
And I thank you for your willingness to share this information with others.
Ali to je tek prvi korak koji će da nas zagolica i pruži mogućnost da nešto uradimo za sebe.
But this is the first step of something that might entice us, something that might invite us to do something for ourselves so that we can enjoy life more.
Da li je to samo ovo što ćemo čuti sada?
Is the experience concluding tonight with or today when we're listening to this?
Ili će to da nas navede da počnemo da meditiramo?
Or will that inspire us to start meditating?
Na primjer, jednom od meditacija poredka ljubavi.
For example, potentially with one of the meditations from the Orders of Love.
Ili će nam otvoriti put da dođemo na seminar.
Or it might be inspiring us to experience it personally at the seminar.
U svakom slučaju će sve to da pokrene nešto u nama.
In any case, this is an opportunity for something to get initiated inside of us.
I to što pokrene u nama dovešće do promene u nama.
And that initiation, the movement inside of us, after we hear this information, will create a certain change inside of us.
Teško možete nakon što čujete što pričamo da ostanete ravnodušni.
Seldom are we able to block out openings that are created by new information.
Dakle, to pokreće nešto u vama.
And the new insights and perspectives create movements inside you.
To dovodi do promene u vama.
And those movements create the change inside of us.
I istog trenutka kada dođe do promene u vama, menja se nešto u vama i vašem odnosu prema vašim najbližima.
And with each of those movements inside you, there is a new way of relating to your closest ones.
Prema vašoj voljenoj osobi.
Towards your lover, your significant other.
Ili deci.
Your children.
Braći, sestrama, roditeljima.
Siblings, spouses, parents.
Dakle, ta promena nikad nije vezana samo za jednu osobu.
Each change in each person is never just a personal change.
Ne zato što to ja tako želim ili ne želim.
Not because I say so, or I would like it to be, or not like it to be.
Već zato što velika duša uvek radi u velikom stilu.
But because the great soul always work with the great style.
Ne bi bila velika da pravi sitne račune.
And it wouldn't be a great soul if it did small little things.
Uvek radi za sve nas.
It always works simultaneously for all of us.
I za sve koji su umreženi s nama.
And for all of us that are in our system, in our network, in all the people that are connected to us.
A pošto se sve ovo zasniva na ljubavi.
And because all of this is based on love,
to nam istovremeno daje veliku mogućnost da živimo život u ljubavi.
It gives us an opportunity to live a life full of love.
Kao kad se zagalimo, na primjer.
Just like when we hug each other.
Teče ljubav.
Love flows.
I sve jedno koga zagrlite, teče ljubav.
Regardless of who you're hugging, love is flowing.
I tu ne mislim na ništa erotsko, seksualno, mislim na ljubav.
It's not related to erotic or sexual kind of love. It's the big love.
Što da ne može, jer erotsko, seksualno da se rodi vremenom.
Yes, we can definitely allow for those erotic and sexual things to get initiated.
Ali to nije
over
namera.
Time, but that's not the intention.
Dakle, teče ljubav i razmena.
Love and exchange of love is flowing.
I vrlo mi je drago što se grlite.
And I'm really happy that you are huggers here.
Na seminaru se stalno grlimo.
At the seminar we hug endlessly.
Zagrljaj je neophodan da bismo preživeli.
Hugging is a necessary ingredient for survival.
Za puko preživljavanje nam je potrebno 5 zagrljaja dnevno.
For bare survival, we need at least 5 hugs a day.
Ali ne kratkih zagrljaja.
But not short hugs.
Zagrljaj neophodno traje najmanje 23 sekunde.
The minimum length of a hug needs to be 23 seconds.
Šta se dešava? To možemo čak i da objasnimo ne samo na nivou ljubavi.
And what happens there? We can explain that not only at the love exchange level, but beyond.
Ispod naše grudne kosti nalazi se timus, žljezda timus.
Under our chest bone, the thymus gland
I mi
exists.
Možemo timus da stimulišemo i ako se tapkamo po grudnoj kosti.
And we can stimulate it even with tapping.
ali mnogo bolje stimulišemo timus u zagrljaju.
But the thymus is much better stimulated with hugs.
Zbog čega je timus toliko bitan?
Why is the thymus so important?
Timus luči sve neophodne materije koje su organizmu potrebne da bude zdrav.
Thymus secretes hormones that are necessary for the health of the body.
I ako nedovoljno često stimulišemo timus, on zakržlja.
And if we don't stimulate it regularly, it can atrophy.
Kao i bilo koji drugi organ koji ne koristimo, on zakržlja.
As any other body part or organ that we don't use can atrophy.
I zbog toga najmanje 5 puta dnevno po 23 sekunde, čisto da bi timus radio.
And just for the health reasons of the thymus, we should hug 5 times a day at least with 23 seconds long.
Ali istovremeno za te 23 sekunde počinju da se luče hormoni sreće.
But while those health hormones are flowing, also the happiness hormones are flowing as well.
Neophodno je da nam je u zagrljaju prijatno.
It's important to enjoy the hug.
Da nemamo otpore.
That we can relax and not resist it.
Ili od namere ili bilo već da zagrlimo u ljubavi.
To give ourselves fully to the hug and full of love.
I u toj razmeni ljubavi dolazi do lučenja hormona sreće.
And in that exchange, happiness hormones can flow.
I tako dalje.
And so on and so forth.
Ako želimo da rastemo,
and if we would like to grow,
potrebno nam je 10 zagrljaja.
We need 10 hugs.
A za spiritualni rast i razvoj 14.
And for spiritual growth, we need 14.
Svakog dana.
Every day.
Doctor's prescription.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I'm convinced. And by the way, Ivan, you're doing an amazing job of not only remembering everything that he's saying and then translating, because sometimes he says things and I know more or less what he's saying because he's using a word that sounds similar enough to an English word and so on. But it's the way you're keeping track of the sequence, and I can tell how tired and how you're struggling through this. So I really just thank you for all that effort. I know you're not feeling well tonight, and it's just, amazing.
I wouldn't sit anywhere else right now.
Okay.
In the whole world.
It's a blessing to have you guys here. It really is. Spoken a lot about origins. We've spoken about the group work, but what is the individual work? How does one practice connecting with the field, living from a place whereby you can eventually work with a group? But outside of the group, what do you do?
Vrlo je jednostavno.
It's a very simple answer.
Počnimo sa 1 satom dnevno.
We can start with 1 hour a day.
To nam možda izgleda puno.
It could seem like a lot.
Jer živimo brzo, jurimo, u biznisu smo ili kako god.
We live very fast and we are running around out there.
I pri tome vrlo često zaboravimo sebe.
And many times we tend to forget ourselves.
Dozvolimo sebi da sat vremena posvetimo sebi i meditaciji.
Let's allow ourselves in 1 hour to ourselves and to meditation.
Ne moramo pripadati nekom meditativnom krugu.
We don't have to join a meditation circle.
Ne moramo imati određene idealne uslove za meditaciju.
We don't have to have ideal or special environment for meditation.
Možemo meditirati bilo gde.
We can meditate anywhere.
U bilo kom položaju.
In any position.
Bitno je da dozvolimo sebi svakoga dana 1 sat meditacije.
It's very important to allow ourselves an hour for ourselves.
I taj sat je vrlo bitan.
That hour is very important.
da je svakoga dana.
That it happens every day.
Ne danas, pa za nedelju dana ili preko sutra, već svakoga dana.
Not today and then 3 days from now, but every day.
Više je spektra koje mogu da se opiše šta se dešava pri meditaciji.
There's a large spectrum of experiences and benefits of what happens when we meditate.
Nije samo tu da budemo uspešni u svemu šta radimo.
The benefit is not that we're just going to be successful in whatever we do.
To svakako dolazi,
Success will come,
ali već u sitnim stvarima.
but there are small things beyond that come as well.
Na primjer, da lakše zaspimo,
For example, to sleep better,
da spavamo dobro,
to sleep well,
da imamo bolji fokus,
to be able to focus,
bolju koncentraciju,
to concentrate better,
da imamo strpljenje.
to have patience.
Meditacije direktno utiču na to. Da pomenem samo nekoliko benefita.
Meditations tremendously influence and support all of that. Just to mention a few.
I to možemo svakodnevno u svakodnevnom životu praktikovati.
And we can do and practice all of those daily.
Možemo da se grlimo
We can hug
svakog dana.
every day.
Slobodno i više od 14 puta.
And if you'd like to do more than 14, that's really good.
Ali najmanje 5 puta.
But at least 5 times.
Dakle, radi se o sitnim stvarima.
Simple things daily performed can make a huge difference.
Koje su nam dostupne i moguće.
Simple things that are available to us every day with practice can make a big difference.
Na seminarima, na primjer, učimo rituale.
During seminars, we learn different rituals.
Kako da se u određenim situacijama, u određenim izazovima u životu lakše nosimo sa njima.
How to respond to certain challenges in life, how to see them, and how to respond to them.
Na primjer, da se poklonimo
For example, to bow
s poštovanjem
with respect,
ili da osetimo podršku oca, majke
or to feel the support from our father and mother,
i njihovih roditelja i cele te naše velike reke predaka.
and to feel the support from their father and mother and all of our ancestors, to feel the support from the river of life of our ancestors.
The river of life. That's a name of one of the meditations, isn't it? River of life.
Yeah.
Spring of life.
Or spring of life, okay.
And then, yes, it's definitely a river.
In all of your years working with this, you must have learned an incredible amount of things, and your perspective has to have evolved over this time. So here we are in this moment, and as you look back to the beginning of your journey in constellations, is there something that you've realized now that would have been helpful if you would have realized it earlier? Like if you could whisper something to your previous self, what would it be?
Najbitnije je ljubav.
Love is the most important.
I know that word.
You've been listening to The Authenticity Show with your hosts, Carlos Casados and Satch Purcell. A very special thank you to our guests, Vlado Ilić and Ivan Polić. If you'd like to learn more about the work they do, you can visit the website orderoflove.com. You can also find information there about the Family Constellations workshop that they will be doing in Los Angeles on the 6th through the 8th of December of this year, 2019. So go there and sign up for that. If you go, you will see me there for sure. My name is Oliver Altine. I record, edit, and produce this show. I also wrote the theme music, which you're listening to right now. And the interstitial music this time was a little groove I worked up a long time ago. I called it Style Camp. And there's a story behind that title, but I'm not going to tell you. So you're just going to have to guess. Please subscribe to The Authenticity Show wherever you get your podcasts and find us on social media. We would love to connect with you there. And you can find our website at authenticityshow.com. Thank you for listening and have an authentic day.